On a Tuesday morning, January 9, 2024, 6:07 a.m. My kettle hissed like a tired cat. The kitchen smelled of Folgers and buttered toast, the cheap kind that leaves grease crescents on your napkin. My thermostat still wears a beige frame like it's 1993. The linoleum curls by the fridge. A grocery list sticks to the door with a magnet shaped like a slice of watermelon. Ruth bought it at a church bazaar back, when we still thought time was a polite guest. I'm 75. That's not a confession. It's a weather report. My house is too quiet, and when it isn't quiet, it's because the heater kicks on with a noise like a truck downshifting. People say grief gets softer. Mine just learned to shut doors gently. My phone, the antique, as my grandson calls it, sat face down by the sugar bowl. It's a Samsung Note 3 with a crack that maps like a river delta across the top corner. Black rubber case, ugly as a boot. I keep it because it does the one thing I need. It rings and it records. When you get older, you start respecting tools that do one thing well. The kettle went high and thin, and my phone jittered against the laminate. A bank alert. I wiped my glasses. Zelle. $1,000 sent to K. Ramirez at 2:13 a.m. I stared at the text until my coffee tasted like metal. I don't know a K. Ramirez. I know a Kayla whose hair changes color like a mood ring and who treats rules like suggestions on a coupon. She started showing up with my grandson, Jamie, last fall, smelling like caramel vape and entitlement. The rooster timer buzzed. My toast blackened. I ate it anyway. Old men eat what they burn. The next night, January 10th, 12:49 a.m., another ping. Zelle. $2,500 to J. Santos. The note field read rent, which would have been funny if it hadn't been mine. By dawn, Cash App chimed. $450 to AK Money. I don't have Cash App. Somehow my debit card does. Thursday brought the kind of email you hate. Your Zelle daily limit has been increased to $5,000. I hadn't requested that. The same morning, I opened my inbox to a booking confirmation. American Airlines, February 16th, Miami, MIA. Seat 7C and 7D. Total. $2,198.40. Names. J. Cooper and K. Ramirez. I stood by the sink with my reading glasses perched on my head like a lost bird and reread it until my coffee forgot it was warm. Grandpa, your phone belongs in a museum, Jamie said later, after he rolled out of bed at noon and raided my fridge. He held the Note 3 up like a bug in a jar. You know the mic on this fossil is busted, right? I tried to make a voice memo the other day, and it sounded like a blender chewing gravel. You should just get an iPhone. He laughed into the fridge light. One of those laughs boys make when they think they're charming. He smelled like body spray trying to strangle something alive. He left the milk out. He always leaves the milk out. What is this charge, Jamie? I asked, tapping the paper statement I'd printed because paper is how I keep a sense of proportion. CryptoMart ACH $8,000. Exchange BTC purchase. You don't read my mail, but I read my money. He didn't look. I told you not to click those weird emails, Grandpa. Scammers target seniors. Seniors target seniors, I said, and earned a blink at my own little joke. He called Kayla on speaker, walked a loop between the stove and the back door, told her he was handling it. I watched his sneakers squeak their small pattern into my floor and thought about all the other patterns he'd been etching when I wasn't looking. By Saturday, January 13th, my ledger had grown rude. Zelle transfers on the 9th, 10th, 11th, $1,000, $2,500, $1,500. Cash App on the 12th, $450, $750. CryptoMart, $8,000 on the 11th, $12,000 on the 12th. BestBuy.com, $4, $299 for a ROG Strix gaming rig. Shipped to Pickup Locker. Hyatt Miami, $1, $198 prepaid for 2 nights. Uber Cash top-up, $300. If you're keeping score at home, the scoreboard said $30,197.40 and counting. And then, like a cherry on the sundae, an email at 1:04 a.m. Sunday. Your external transfer to Aspire Finance $10,000 is scheduled. Aspire is one of those neon banks that live only on phones and in podcasts. My money was moving to a place that doesn't own a chair. Interesting, I said to the empty kitchen. Very interesting. I own a stack of yellow legal pads because law is what you need when people forget how to behave. I made columns, date, description, amount, like I used to when Ruth and I were saving to put a new roof on the ranch in '99. Roofs are honest. They tell you when you fail them. People don't. Jamie slept until 2, like a vampire who doesn't respect the lore. When he shuffled in, he didn't say good morning. He said, "Do we have any cereal?" And then, "You should really get Wi-Fi that doesn't suck." "Tell me about Kayla Ramirez," I said. "Kayla," he said, like the name ought to ring bells. Like this is a parade and not a reckoning. "She's my girlfriend." "She's my creditor," I said. "Grandpa, it's not like that," he said, and the words stacked into a tower I could watch wobble as he built it. "I've been fronting some stuff. There was a flight we had to book because we're doing a brand thing in Miami, and I'm flipping some crypto. Like, I'll put back. It's an investment. You don't get it. What I get is that my Zelle limit grew while I was asleep." He smirked. "Okay, boomer." I turned my phone face up and moved my thumb over the screen the way Ruth used to pat my arm at funerals when I said something true. I opened voice recorder. Red circle. Level set to high. I laid the phone down by the sugar bowl and draped a dish towel over it like it was cold. "Mixed dead anyway," Jamie said, jabbing at the case with a finger. "Those old vents are just for decoration." "Sure," I said, and folded the towel to straighten it. The rooster timer watched our little theater. I'd have preferred to be in the audience. Nobody asked me. Entropy is a kind of generosity. If you let it work, people reveal themselves without much help. Jamie made his call. I buttered toast I didn't want. The house did that thing old houses do where they act like they aren't listening. "Yo, Greg, listen," he said, pacing his figure 8. "We're straight." Dude didn't even notice. I raised the Zelle cap, Lincoln High, Rusty the dog, July 14th, 1971. All that security question boomer stuff is on his Facebook. Is moved 10 to Aspire already. Cryptomart went through, 20 total. Kay's ticket is locked for the 16th, first class, baby. Trust. He laughed sharp at I. No. He thinks the mic on his brick is busted. I tried to record something with it. Sounds like a lawnmower. Dude's ancient. He keeps spreadsheets like in paper. "LMAO. I'll pay it back when the coin hits. Plus, he owes me. He won't even miss 50 grand. He paid off his house in the 80s or whatever." 99, I said under my breath for me. Greg might have said something about risk. He might have said windfall. Jamie's reply came fast. "It's not stealing if it's family. It's borrowing with benefits." He hung up. He whistled. He tossed his keys into the dish that used to hold Ruth's costume jewelry. The phone under the towel kept its little red eye open and patient. 20 minutes later, I listened to the file with my glasses off. It is very difficult to hear your own blood in someone else's mouth. I emailed the audio to myself. I copied it to a flash drive, blue plastic, 64 gigabytes, more memory than I thought a human needed until I met a lie. I slid the drive into the old cigar tin where I keep spare keys and the original deed to the house. I finished my coffee cold. Monday, January 15th, th, 9:05 a.m. First date savings. Branch on oak and 3rd. The carpet is the color of a patient wait. The potted ficus in the corner is so dusty you could write "help" on it with a fingertip and no one would notice until close. "Mr. Cooper," said the branch manager. A calm man named Esteban with a navy tie and the kind of smile that makes you think he practices remembering faces. "How can we help today?" I handed him a folder. Printer paper has the smell of resolve. "Some of these aren't me," I said. "Most of these are not me." He brought in a fraud investigator from downtown. A woman in her 30s named Simone with nails like she'd been tapping on a desk while learning to be good at her job. Esteban invited Officer Alvarez from the Community Liaison Unit to sit in. Apparently Mondays are when financial crimes decide they want to be friends with the law. "Do you recognize the names?" Simone asked. "Kayla Ramirez," I said. I recognized the haircut. We went line by line. She circled dates. He froze the debit card. They put a hold on pending Zelle transfers to Aspire. I signed an affidavit saying I don't know what money, I don't engage with Cryptomart. And I didn't wake up at 2:11 that M.to increase my own vulnerability. Simone asked if anyone had access to my security questions. Only anyone who has ever listened to me tell stories, I said. I grew up on Elliott Street with a mutt named Rusty and graduated with a class of 114 out of Lincoln High. I'm not a puzzle box. Do you feel safe at home? Officer Alvarez asked. It was not the question he was really asking. Good cops learn to ask the ones they're allowed. I feel like my house is the right size for one man and too big for the wrong boy, I said. We made a plan. Friday, January 19th, 3 p.m. A follow-up with Simone and Alvarez. If you're comfortable, Simone said, we'd like Jamie to be there. I'm not comfortable, I said, but I'll bring him. That night at 11:57 p.m., my new phone, the one Matthew insisted on last year, with a camera good enough to make me look worse, rang from a block number. A voice introduced himself as Tom from Elder Aid, said he'd gotten a tip that I was making wild accusations against my grandson, suggested maybe I was confused. Thank you, I said, because what else does a man say to a stranger with a script? I hung up. I sat in the dark. I put my hand flat on the old phone and fell to breathe like a small animal. I have known for a long time that I am not confused. Thursday lunch. Grilled cheese in Ruth's skillet. The one that holds the ghost of onions no matter how often you scrub it with salt. Tomato soup from a can. Pickles on the plate because crunch feels like a decision. Jamie, I said, on December 22nd, $1,400 at Tech Depot for a laptop shipped to Kayla's address. On January 2nd, $2,800 in airline charges. On the 9th through the 13th, Zelle and cash. App transfers totaling $5,700. On the 11th and 12th, Cryptomart, $20,000. On the 14th, an Aspire transfer, $10,000. As of this morning, $37,900 is provably gone, and $12,000 is in limbo. The number I wrote down is $49,900, but I haven't checked today. He set his sandwich down like it betrayed him. Why are you doing this? Because you are. Grandpa, I'm your family. Then act like it. His eyes did that narrow thing boys' eyes do when they are deciding whether to become men or double down. You really gonna sick cops on me? Over some float? I told you I'd put back. On Friday at 3, I said, we're going to the bank. You will listen to something. Then you will tell the truth. Then you will start paying me back with money you earned with hands, not with apps. If you don't come, I will go without you. You recorded me, he said, not yet believing in gravity. On that brick, the mic doesn't even. It does. He stood so fast the chair legs skittered like cockroaches. Kayla said you were cool. She said you were old, but cool. Kayla is half right, I said, and took another bite of grilled cheese because you shouldn't give hunger to anger. They breed. He left by the back door, swinging the screen hard enough to make it argue with the frame. He did not slam it. I counted that as self-control. Friday, 3 p.m., Oak and 3rd. The bank's fish tank, empty of fish, full of ambition, gurgled. Esteban smiled his practice smile. Simone had a laptop open to a screen I pretended not to understand. Officer Alvarez nodded once in the universal language of we're all going to be fine if we tell the truth. Jamie came at 3:05 in a hoodie with a logo from a podcast about cars that don't exist. Kayla came with him, chewing gum like she wanted to punish it. This is a private meeting, Simone said, gentle as a guard dog. Kayla rolled her eyes in one long circle, then left. Jamie smirked at her back like the joke would save him. We're recording for accuracy, Esteban said, and clicked a little red light on a device that looked like a paperweight. I thought about how certain sounds change rooms. A refrigerator hum makes a kitchen honest. A recorder click makes a meeting behave. We went through the list. Simone slid paper toward Jamie. Do you recognize these transfers? He shrugged. I don't know. Maybe. She clicked play. Yo, Greg, listen. His face turned into glass. He looked at his shoes like they could explain physics. He put his hand over his mouth at the part with Rusty's name. His smirk tried to find purchase and slid down his cheek like bad paint. "That's edited," he said, and his voice had the wobble of a floorboard nobody fixed. "Jamie," I said, "sometimes the only way to use a name is like a prayer for a person who's not there yet." Officer Alvarez leaned forward an inch. "Mr. Cooper, do you want to file charges? There are moments when your bones decide for you." "Yes," I said. Jamie half stood, then remembered the chair was expected to behave. "Grandpa, come on. This is crazy. You're really gonna—" "I am," I said. "Not because I don't love you. Because I do." Simone explained what would happen. Fraud affidavits, provisional credits, clawbacks from Zelle recipients if funds hadn't evaporated. A hold on Aspire. Officer Alvarez explained the police side in sentences that had the shape of mercy and the weight of consequences. Theft by unlawful taking, access device fraud, diversion possibility if he cooperated and paid restitution, community service, counseling. Jamie swallowed, so hard he could hear it. "I'll pay back," he said. "I swear." "You'll start today," I said. "But first, you'll tell the truth to someone not named me." He nodded to Simone, to Alvarez, as if these were his teachers, and this was the most important test he'd ever cheated on until now. "Kayla told me how to do the Zelle thing," he said quiet. "Greg showed me Cryptomart. Aspire was my idea." "How much total?" Simone asked. Jamie looked at the table. 58, he said. "Maybe 62? He meant 1,000. The meeting sucked the color out of the carpet. Simone's pen did not tremble. "We will proceed on 58,430, she said, pending verification. Kayla's gum popped in the hallway. Esteban printed forms. I signed where adults sign. Jamie signed where defendants do. He unlocked his phone. Simone took photographs of app pages until the truth had the weight of paper. Officer Alvarez took my statement in a voice that didn't hurry me. When we stood, Jamie tried to hug me and didn't know where to put his arms. At home, the house adjusted to the new math. Jamie slept in the spare room with the door open by agreement, like a dog learning stay again. I locked my wallet in the desk. Ruth insisted we keep even after the roll top broke. The old phone went in the drawer with rubber bands, and the garage door opener manuals nobody reads. The flash drive went into the safety deposit box under Ruth's birth certificate and the title to the Ford. Sunday, my son Matthew called from Columbus. "Dad," he said, slow like a man stepping into cold water. "I got Simone's voicemail. I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," I said. "You have to be useful." He breathed out a laugh that sounded like gratitude with its hair messed up. "What do you need me to do?" "Tell your boy you love him after he pleads," I said. "Then make him go to work. The job where he comes home with grease under his nails, not a new app on his phone." Monday, Simone called with the math nobody likes, but everybody needs. The bank could credit back $26,200 pending investigation. Zelle had flagged 4 recipients and might claw back $7,000. Aspire had frozen $10,000 thanks to the hold Esteban placed. Cryptomart was gone like a bird let out a barn door. $20,000 of evaporated confidence. She spoke in a language of maybes and pursuant to regulation. "And I listen the way you listen to a doctor tell you there will be a scar, but you'll keep the limb." "Thank you," I said and meant it. There are people whose everyday job is to wade into other people's messes. They are underrated saints. Jamie got a job at Maddie's Tire and Lube on Route 12, $18 an hour. More if he learned to balance without the machine. He came home tired in a good way. He taped a payment schedule to my fridge. $200 every Friday, plus whatever overtime bought his shame permission to rest. He stopped laughing like he was the only one who could hear the joke. At breakfast, we ate oatmeal with brown sugar and raisins, even though he said raisins were old people grapes. He ate them anyway. He started going to a Thursday night group for financial responsibility, which is a phrase that sounds like a threat until you've met relief. A week later, Officer Alvarez called to say the DA was willing to do a diversion agreement. 150 hours at the county food bank, restitution. 3-part class called Real Money, random check-ins. No new charges for a year. If he completed it, the case would be dismissed. If he didn't, the case would not. I told Jamie. He cried in the driveway, like someone pulled a splinter he had been protecting for months. He said, "I'm sorry," and I said, "You're forgiven. Now go earn it." In March, Kayla messaged him to say Miami was still on for other boys. He blocked her. In April, he told me Greg wanted to get the crew back together. He blocked him too. Blocking is not a virtue, but it is sometimes the first step toward one. I found Ruth's sapphire ring in the back of Jamie's sock drawer under a t-shirt printed with a brand no adult wears. I did not mention it to him right then. I put the ring back in its velvet slot and told Ruth out loud in an empty room. I found it. The room chose not to answer. By June, Jamie's hands looked like a man's. Knuckles scuffed, grease maps, a nick on the thumb from a rotor that didn't respect his fingers. He had paid $4,000 back. The bank had secured credits and clawbacks that left me whole on paper. A miracle performed by strangers following rules. The Cryptomart hole remained. I decided to count it not as a loss, but as a tuition bill that bought my grandson a class nobody would have enrolled him in on purpose. One evening we sat on the porch steps with bowls of ice cream, vanilla from a gallon tub with a scoop bent like an apology. The sun fell slow through the maples. Jamie said, "I told Mr. Matty I want to try brake job solo next week." "Good," I said. "Get very good at stopping. It's useful in more than one way." He laughed a little. It wasn't a smirk. That childish flash of superiority had left his face and taken 5 years with it. He looked younger and somehow older at once. He drank water from a bottle, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and looked at the old phone on the porch table like it was a relic from a war nobody wrote about. "You still keep that brick around?" he asked, trying for jokey and landing on respectful. "It does what I ask it to," I said. "That's more than I can say for some people I've known." He shook his head. "Grandpa." "I know," I said, and we watched a neighbor kid wobble down the sidewalk on a too-big bike and correct without falling. On the first Thursday in July, we went back to First Date savings, not for drama, but for paperwork. Esteban shook our hands. Simone brought printouts with words like resolved and settled. Officer Alvarez wasn't there. We didn't need him. Jamie signed a final page that said if he did his hours and payments, the Commonwealth would forget this ever happened in the way governments forget. Carefully, by rule. "Thank you," Jamie said to Simone. And she nodded in that way professionals do when thanks is part of the checklist they complete by heart. We walked out into heat that turned the air thick. Jamie pointed across the street at the phone store. "We should get you something with more storage," he said. "Like just in case." "In case of what?" I asked. "In case somebody needs to hear himself," he said, and shaded his eyes with a hand that had learned something. "I think this one will do," I said. We got hot dogs from the cart on the corner. Mustard, no ketchup, because I still prefer the way New Jersey taught me to eat. We sat on the curb. A piece of mustard landed on Jamie's shoe, and he wiped it with a napkin like a person whose life makes sense again. Priests talk about sacraments. Old men talk about condiments. Same idea. That night, I took the Note 3 out of the drawer and scrolled the voice recorder list. The file sat there with its timestamp like a little gravestone. 2024-01-1312-08-41. I watched my thumb hover over delete. I set the phone down. I do not need to keep a wound open to prove it bled. When people ask church ladies, the neighbor with the long lawn, even my son, I tell them the truth. My grandson mocked my old phone and recorded his own confession on it. He thought the mic was broken. It wasn't. The police pressed play, and his smirk vanished. If they ask what happened next, I say, he went to work. It's not poetic, but poetry is not the only way to make a life. I am not the hero here. I am a man with a ledger, a skillet that remembers onions, and a line I didn't know I had until someone stepped across it. I'm the person who pressed record and then play, and then when it mattered most, stop. In the end, the balance sheet says one thing and the house says another. The balance sheet says recovered funds $43,200 and restitution scheduled $15,230 to reach $58,430 over a year. The house says mornings with coffee that taste like coffee again, and the sound of a grandson on the porch talking about brake pads and stopping distances, and the dish towel folded just so over phone that Once Upon a January turned out to be newer than the boy who judged it. And if you want a last line fit for a plaque, here it is. When the officer set my antique on the table and the room filled with Jamie's voice bragging about theft like it was a plan, I learned the most modern feature of any phone isn't the camera. It's the way it makes a conscience unavoidable.